Hello, everybody, and good morning. My name is Alexandre. We are slowly welcoming all the participants to webinar today. Count is rising already, 40 people, 45 people today. Hello, everybody. Before we start our usual webinar, you might be familiar with the EU Disinfolab webinar. I'm gonna ask you a few things, and we're gonna also work on a few housekeeping rules. So we won't use the Slido features, the Zoom features for taking questions or remarks during this call. We will use Slido. I will ask you if you want to join us today in this because we'll take questions only from that medium. To join us at slido.com /OSINT. You can actually tell us which country are you coming from today. That would be great to have this information. We're already at 77 people, so which means we should have more than 70 responses to Slido. And as we are slowly starting this, thank you everybody for contributing to that. So hello again, my name is Alexandre, and we're gonna start in a few seconds. So we have people from the sunny state of Belgium, not so sunny today. People from the US, good morning. Serbia, UK, Brazil, Turkey, Portugal, quite some interesting locations today, very worldwide. Good evening to our friends from Philippines. We have around 40 answers. We are 85, so please continue a bit to tell us where you come from. So today, we're going to talk about the OSINT and the public interest guidelines for open source investigations that we've been working on in the past month. It's been a fantastic journey, and we're happy to share this journey and what we've been working on with you. Meanwhile, that we are going there, just a few things. I'm going to be joined by Amaury Lesplingart from Check First. Hello, Amaury.
Hello, Alexandre.
We don't see you. It seems that you have completely disappeared, so you are not an AI automated voice. Good to see, good to see you, Amaury. So today you've been participating to the working group of OSINT Guidelines with us. We'd like to thank you. We're gonna split this webinar in two. We have almost 1 hour to discuss these topics today. We're going to split this in two. I'm going to explain to you first, like the different guidelines and the background during the of this work, what we have been trying to do, what was our goal, how did we came up with these guidelines. That will be the first part of our call today. Second part of our call today will be to look specifically at how these guidelines can translate into organizations, and then we'll conclude about next steps and have quite some time for Q&A. You were more than 300 to register for the webinar today. We already have more than 100 participants in this webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we can answer all of your questions that might be very numerous today. So let's kick off. I see some of you people are also filling up the other Slido poll about like which sector do you represent, and we do see academic people, private sector. Feel free to fill this in on your phone while we are starting to discuss all of that. So I'm going to talk first about the introduction, the background. I'm going to present very briefly the guidelines, and then, as I mentioned, Amaury will show you how Check First, as a specific organizations, have been trying to implement this into their working processes. Just for some kind of introduction, my name is Alexandre Alaphilippe. I work at the EU Disinfo Lab. We are a non-for-profit NGO based in Brussels. We're working on disinformation at large. And we've been working on these guidelines a bit, I would not say by accident, but we've been working with a project you might know, which is the European Fact-Checking Standard Network, EFCSN, which is a project that has been funded by the EU Commission and that was aiming to bring together fact checkers and organizations that were doing OSINT together and to work on a common code of practice or common code of conduct, a bit in what the IFC and the International Fact-Checking Network is doing, but mostly for European organizations. So we started this project last year in 2022. And at some point in the project, we realized that the world of fact checkers and fact checking organizations and the different kind of maturity that we had in the OSINT world were definitely not at the time where they could meet and agree on common standards. And we decided to have some kind of an innovative approach on this in the project. So instead of having one code for everybody, which would have been very difficult for some very I would say emerging organizations doing OSINT to be able to apply in all the dimensions and all the ambition that the EFCSN has reached, we decided to go in a different way and to think about what could be in this world of open source intelligence and investigations, what could be common principle that we could agree on. And what we did was really to think about what could be done and what could be common agreements on that. So we had a working group in Madrid with a few organizations that are listed down in this slide. So EU Disinfo Lab, Logically, Open Facto, which is a French association focusing on open source intelligence. OSINT Curious, people in the field might know that OSINT Curious is not existing anymore, but we had the pleasure of working with them a few months ago. Check First, Amaury is here. Center for Information Resilience, very active in Ukraine, and the DFR Lab. And what we had the chance to meet in a room for 2 days in Madrid at the end of September, and trying to think together about, okay, what do we want to achieve? And quite very surprisingly, and I'm still surprised with that, in 2 days we were able to agree on many things and to agree on principles, and I will come back on this. We've tried to. We had a first draft around the fall. We've been working on this this summer, asking also external organizations to provide feedback, and I would like to thank them for helping us into challenging some of the things that we've been discussing, all of us, because at the end we need to say that we were only like 7 organizations together. We are not fully representative of the whole community, but so we try to explain this a bit, and we finalized this at the end of last year and been working on the publication of this. So you might see something that is called OSINT. OSINT is just like a code name at this stage. It's not an organization. It's not. We don't have membership. People cannot enter like that. OSINT is really a kind of a placeholder for the future of these guidelines, because you will see these guidelines are not definitive. We do not think that we achieved and solved everything with one silver bullet, but we think there is a margin for improvement, and we still need to think about what will happen in the future, what kind of field we want to explore, and to move forward maybe to something much more established than it is right now. So this is where we are at this stage. So why have we drafted guidelines for OSINT? Very simply because we've been witnessing, like many of you, I guess, like the exponential activity around OSINT. Sometimes things that are called OSINT that are not OSINT, and we wanted to think about, okay, what are good practices that we could share within the community, that we share together, and that we could encourage others to do, and especially people that are joining the field that have never done OSINT before, and what kind of like prerequisite or what kind of documentation might be useful for organizations working in this field, in the way they prepare, in the way they work on that. And we've been trying to look at what could be agreed on as a common ground. So I'm going to jump directly in the guidelines. If you want to ask Q&A already, just like you can put them directly in the Slido, they will come here, and we can deal with them later. So you don't need to wait until the end of the presentation to ask questions if you already have them. So we put all of these ideas together in Madrid. It was kind of a very intense brainstorming for a few days, and we came out with these 5 chapters that we could agree on, which was 1, different principles, the question of public interest, methodology, outputs, the work conditions, and culture. So here I want to say something very, very simple, because I have seen that there are discussions already on OSINT online. We do not aim to represent everything that was in OSINT. So one of the things that we quickly agreed on when we were together in Madrid was to say that these guidelines are not covering all OSINT, because we all have different realities in how we are doing OSINT, and we only invested the part of what we called public interest open source investigations. So basically, when you're doing OSINT, to go into an output which is facing the public, where people have to understand how you came along, how you did analyze specific campaigns of disinformation in our case, how did you make your assessment, what kind of data did you use, etc. So we're really looking at something which is towards public outputs. So it's not, it should not be interpreted as every part of OSINT should apply to these guidelines, because we've been focusing specifically on publication and public outputs. That's the first thing. So, however, it means that if you are doing this for outside public outputs, we do think that it might be useful for your organization, because we do think it's helping to have better investigation and research at the beginning. But we've been focusing only into what could be what should be necessary and useful if you are facing the public eye. So the principles, first thing, principles are like 5 overarching principles that are touching on that are very transversal to the guidelines, which are the principles of accuracy, of community, of diversity, of accountability, and of balance and responsibility. So these kind of 5 principles are really cross chapters, and you can find this kind of values that are being fed in the different chapters. So the first one is, after principles, is like the public interest. So why do you engage in OSINT operations for the public? How do you justify that what you're doing is for the public interest? Second part is the methodology, which talks about data collection, data analysis, data storage, and what kind of documentation and what kind of processes you can put in place to have accuracy and solid data methodologies. Next one is outputs. So how should you work on your outputs that are becoming public, and what are the main things that you should keep in mind? And the last one being the work conditions and culture, which is go beyond the pure investigative work, but really looking also at protecting people that are doing OSINT, safety, and other work conditions to be able to work in a safe environment, because as we know, OSINT can also drag us in a very dark places. So the question of mental health, the question of protection of staff was very crucial with us working in sometimes on very complex environments. So these are the 4 main chapters and the principles, which is an overarching chapter, let's say. I'm taking here an example, like to do like a full training and a full presentation of all the OSINT guidelines, we will need 1 day. So let's not go that road. Everything is available on our website, osint.eu. You can download it and look at what's being done. I'm just explaining here very roughly how it works. So we have this kind of principle that I mentioned, like for instance, in methodology, we have something around data analysis. I took like a small bit on the left of what we have in data analysis. It should be objective, accurate, and allow for replicability. It should consider the entirety of the data set and not cherry-pick evidence in order to support research hypotheses. So this is the principle that is inside the guidelines. And that's why in a different way of what certifications or code of conducts or code of practice are doing, we did not say to if you want to reach this, you need to have that document. We said, this is a principle you should reach. The way you want to reach it, you can tailor it to what you need to do. And we had this approach because we do think it's helping every organization to be to catch up and to be able to invent their own ways of being compliant with the guidelines. But what we did to provide some kind of inputs, we listed what we think could be good examples of documents that you could have. For instance, if you want to fill in this data analysis principle, one of the things you can do is like develop research logs. You could develop confidence levels. You could proceed to peer review. You can have a technical research document with like all the different technical elements you use to collect. So it's really inspiration for organizations to see, okay, what can I do? What other people have done? How could I use it? And how could I play with that to make sure like what I have is a useful tool for my organization to fill in with that and to show some kind of good faith and willingness to apply the guidelines into something. And very often we just like provided some examples of like description of what could be documents based on our own experience, and sometimes with even like proposed templates. So for instance, on public interest, we said like what you could do, for instance, to justify the public interest of an investigation you are working on, you could have this kind of SWOT analysis under like analyzing what is my research fitting for public interest. And what we did was some of the organizations that are part of the working group had that kind of document internally, and they shared the template of the document with them. So really, again, looking into how people have been doing this, what could be the best way, inspiration, and building on what other people have been doing, and building the community and keeping it open source as much as we can to support efforts and to avoid replication of useless efforts if people in the community have done similar things. So this is a bit the philosophy that are behind the guidelines. Again, if you want to take some time to read, I really encourage it, and we are happy to follow up with that. I now want to pass the floor to Amaury, really to so Amaury can show how a specific organization have been reading the guidelines and have integrated the guidelines into their own working process. I think that's quite of a fascinating story of implementation. So Amaury, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexandre. So hi, nice to meet you. I'm Amaury. I'm one of the co-founders of Check First. For those who might not know you, we are an accelerator. Our mission is really to provide fact-checkers, researchers, and policymakers tools and methodology to gather force in the fight against disinformation. We are quite a young company. We have been born in 2020, but since we have made some projects such as Journalist Solidaire, which was a fact-checking newsroom, or Crossover, which is a tool to analyze disinformation against the recommendation algorithm. The main common point about those projects is that there is always a part of OSINT into those projects, which is most of the time public-facing. We are partnering with a lot of different organizations, such as universities, state institutions. The question here is, how could we, as an organization, integrate the guideline when we are running a public-facing operation? Here, if we look in the past, we have already led some OSINT investigation, for example, when the explosion happened on Beirut Harbor, or some work for Journalistes Solidaires, or quite recently, when we have analyzed the block list of Odyssey, which is a video network that you may know. So we basically analyzed the entire content moderation system of Odyssey. All that was before the guideline. So we were already doing that work, but we wanted also to be able to be more transparent, but we didn't know exactly how to do that. Same for all tools, for example, Crossover, which track and measure influence of content recommendation algorithm, or 22 Alaphilippe, which was designed for the presidential election of 22 in France. How can we make those tools more trustable by the public? How can we ensure that we have transparency? How can we make all those processes more meaningful for the public was the question that we were asking ourselves. We already had process in place, but those processes were really internal and just like, okay, we think about that. Is it a good idea? We had nobody to challenge our ideas, so we didn't know if our process were good enough for our methodologies. The stress test that we have built is when OSINT arrive. The OSINT, as Alexandre said, sorry, the guidelines have been built around tools. So as we are an OSINT organization, we like data, we like tools, we like things which are measurable. So we have already implemented in our organization two main tools that we are using now on a daily basis, which is the public interest statement and the peer review on investigation. The research pitch framework is a tool that we have, that EU Disinfolab has shared with the OSINT members. And this is a tool that allows us to clarify the subject of our research. So from scratch, we know exactly what we are going to look about. We know exactly the structure that we want to achieve. We know which data we are going to collect. So by building this research pitch framework, that's a document that is really easy to share with other organizations when we want to collaborate. And along the investigation, it becomes really the backbone for the researcher for themselves to ask, like, does I'm going in the right direction? Should I investigate this bit more, or should I limit my investigation to the field that we have defined? So this document became really important in our organization when it comes to start a new investigation. We, for example, have collaborated with OpenFacto on an investigation, and by using this document, the role of each organization was clearly defined in the documents. What we could see now that we are using the research piece is really an increase of our capacity of collaboration, because we don't have anymore this kind of vague description of what are we going to do, where are we going, where everybody is kind of doing his own part and nobody is really knowing who is doing what. So by building this document, by always referring to it, we are now having an investigation where we were capable of putting in the same room 2 universities, 1 OSINT organization, and 2 French media organizations. Everybody collaborates, everybody knows what we are talking about, everybody knows everything. It's in the research pitch. The other document that I would like to share with you is our operation assessment framework. The idea is when you are building an investigation, it's great. You have reviewed your methodology, you have reviewed your data, but at the end, there is an output that you want to this output to be public-faced. So what we build is an objective peer reviewing document that have transparent criteria in order to allow to improve the trust of the audience in our investigation. Our investigation framework includes 4 different reviewers. So basically, when somebody in our organization is finishing, an investigation, 2 other people will review it from Check First. But we also hire 2 external reviewers to review our investigation. The review goes into the document, which have 4 categories, such as quality assessment, accuracy, sampling, bias, or attribution, that give us 18 measurement points. All that together give us an assessment score on 100, and we need to reach at least, I think, 95 for an investigation to be published. So basically, we have view from our organization, from people that have not collaborated but know how we work, but we have also external view from people who have not participated to the investigation, which can review our document really with like measurement point where we can make change. Francesco Poldi, which is an independent reviewer for us, for example, said that it provides a structure and analytical methodology that prevent personal bias and internal thought to interfere with his review. What does it allow to us? That's something that we have published on our website. And what we have seen is an increase of the trust from the public. As an example, I told you previously about this operation, this investigation that we have made about analyzing the content moderation of Odyssey. Basically, by sharing our methodology and review, we have seen an increase of our audience and engagement, where basically people were asking us questions about the review, etc., etc. So by adding this piece of meaningful transparency, we have really increased the trust of our audience in our investigation and our work. So what's next for us? We will continue to integrate the different documents of the guideline in our daily operation in our organization. We have, for example, already included the research plan, the risk assessment, the data protection impact assessment. We still have a long way to go, but I think with the support of the other organization, we will make it meaningful at the end and be able to be completely fully compliant with the guideline that we have wrote. Thank you, everybody. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amaury. Let me reshare my screen. So thank you, Amaury. Again, now you might have many questions about like what are the next steps, how it can be translated into organizations, are they applicable, how we're gonna increase like joining things. So that's we do not have the answers to all of these right now. We're happy to take your questions on that, but we do not have all the answers about how it will turn in the future. We still have to take some steps ourselves to decide how we can implement this on a regular basis. I just want to thank the contribution of people, Amaury that mentioned. Amaury, you were here in Madrid, so thank you. But also Ines Narciso from OSINT Curious, Rachel Winnie from the Center for Information Resilience, Hervé Le Toque at Open Facto, Lucas at DFR Lab, Shivika Sharma at Logically. So thank you all. I think I did not forget anybody, and if not, I will, because I always forget someone. So it might be somebody else that will punch me on the nose virtually, I hope. We have a bit of time for questions. We already have one, so you can use Slido and the OSINT hashtag to share your questions. So I'm gonna take the first one, which is very interesting. Will there ever be a formal OSINT certification? So unfortunately, dear Anonymous, I don't have a crystal ball. It's apparently sold out on Amazon. So I can't tell you if there will be a formal OSINT certification one day. There might be other organizations doing OSINT certification. I think as I mentioned at the beginning, I think our starting point was not that much into looking into certification of OSINT in general, but really to look at if you're doing investigations using OSINT for the public interest, what kind of processes could be put in place. One of the things that could happen at some point is to have much more like a, I don't know if it's a certification process, but at least some kind of a vetting process, or like a compliance process of people that want to join and want to see and to apply these guidelines and to be I would say seen as a member of these guidelines. So thank you for that. Amaury, do you have any thoughts on expansions to more regions?
I think we have designed those guidelines as European organization, but I mean they are for everybody in the world. We are absolutely not limiting the people who want to apply them. So if you're coming from Africa, from Asia, from the US, and you want to apply those guidelines, welcome, please do it. We really think it's a good idea. So go on, come on, just send an email and we will help you as much as we can.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, like, of course, as we are based in Europe, we've been looking into European regulation. I think there are mentions to GDPR, for instance, which is for us one of the central regulation around like data management and personal data management. But of course, this is a standards we live by in Europe. But I think it can be interesting to think about how in other regions this could be applied. Excellent question from Angélique. Thank you, Angélique. Okay, so I have an interesting question. So, Angélique, are you concerned about who has access to these guidelines? Could any malicious actors exploit this information? Let us think. I think it's a valid question. We've seen this into other places where this can be solved. Yes. So I would say transparency always brings a risk of I would say of capture and malicious use. For instance, if you want to harass Amaury, you can harass Check First because, of course, he did a peer review, but like the people doing the peer review might not be the best. I'm doing my own peer review and I say that this is completely false and they are already lying, and I can launch a harassment campaign based on this. So I think there is always a risk, but I'm at a personal level, I'm much more concerned, I would say, by people not applying any kind of guidelines at all or any kind of like safeguards into doing OSINT. I'm pretty sure we all have seen this Twitter accounts with we don't know where they come from popping up and just like start to do OSINT on Twitter live and gathering data live and publishing data on the go. My personal feeling is that this risk is higher than to have bad OSINT being published than to have malicious actors using this the wrong way. I don't know, Amaury, what you think?
I think what is important in the guideline is that we are always talking about meaningful transparency, which means that we ask for transparency when it's possible and when it's responsive to do it. We don't ask for transparency like you have to put the name of all the people working for you on your website. We understand that for some organizations, this is not possible because they are in countries where they would put their people at risk. So that's why we really try to think about those cases where there is risk and where transparency could bring risk. So for the guideline, I mean, any malicious actor can have access to it. I mean, I encourage them to apply it, so it will give us meaningful information. But for the rest, what is in the guideline is really concentrated and really focus on what is important for the organization and what they can provide to the end user, to the public when they are providing their public work.
Thank you, Amaury. We're going to stay with Angélique with another question. Like, do you see any collaborations with governments? I would mention first that we are looking at public interest and public-facing OSINT. I'm not sure that many governments are much invested in publishing assessments. I'm trying to think if I have seen like really publications from governments on OSINT public. Nothing rings a bell, but if I'm missing something, please make a comment there. I don't see any collaboration on that. Just like if they want to publish something on the public interest, if they follow guidelines, I think it would be better for everybody. But there is no, I would say, I have an issue with the term collaboration, Amaury. I don't know what you think.
I mean, again, everybody should join the guideline, etc. But I don't foresee any specific collaboration. No, but again, we don't know what tomorrow will be.
Yes, I would say like if governments want to apply the guidelines, they can send an email, and we can provide a list of public documents that are already available on how to do it. But that's mostly where the collaboration of if ideas are around that should be shared in the public eye on how to do that kind of things, that might be interesting. Excellent question from Milana. How do you see these guidelines evolving with rapidly emerging AI technologies such as ChatGPT, Bard, and all of these chatbots? Amaury, it's a bit more your field, the technical part.
We have been thinking about this when we build the guideline. It's inside the guideline. For example, there is a specific part when we about biased. When we say that, for example, if you're using an AI to in your process, you should explain and take care about the bias that this AI could have, etc., etc. So we have already made some thought about it, but again, as the guidelines are not about how you make an investigation or how you gather data, it's really about how you should act as an investigator, as a researcher. It's not really relevant to take those specific cases into consideration.
Yeah, I would take one example. I don't know. You want to analyze you want to use ChatGPT maybe or any other kind of artificial intelligence tools to make an assessment. So for instance, you see like, I don't know, 25 instances of this information on a website, and you want to use an AI tool, for instance, to check if there are similarities on that, which is a very valid use of AI to try to find this information. The question is, how much do you know about this tool? How much do you know about the bias of this tool? And this is already included in the guidelines. If you're using a specific technical tool, you should try to understand what are the risks, what are the bias this tool can provide to you, can it hurt your assessment? How do you overcome? How do you put different safeguards into making sure like the assessment that you receive is you are confident enough with having these assessments being done? Do you have any kind of processes to double cross or cross check this kind of assessment? So I think the guidelines, we've tried as much as we could to make them a bit neutral in the terms of technology, and that's why we focused a lot on the process and on the internal process, on how you make sure that you are on the right direction and you have enough checks and balances, both internally and externally, to make sure that you ask yourself the right question before publishing or before doing your data collection, your data analysis, etc. So I think it's very adaptable in some way. We'll see what the future is opening, but we've tried as much as we could to make them future proof. How much did you thin down the guidelines to make them publicly digestible? Is there any information that didn't make it into the guidelines? That's a good one.
There is no information that didn't make it into the guideline. I think there is one last comment from one of the members that was made like the last day where we had no time to discuss about it, and it was about workplace environment something. For the rest, we were like every single one of us agree on the exact content of the guideline. From the first draft to the last version, what have changed is the feedback that we have received from organizations reading it. And there we have changed like terminology most of the time to really clarify exactly what we are talking about. But for the rest, no, we really put our heart into that, and by hoping to make something that could be a good start for this type of document.
I think one interesting that happened, for instance, that has been solved quite easily from the beginning. One of the questions we had at the beginning of the writing process was to say, do we define what is open source data and what data should we be able to use in OSINT? And actually pretty quickly, we decided to not make a list of data because we did feel it could have been outdated very quickly, and we insisted much more on the process. So basically, the question of like open source data should be open source, so you should be able to actually access it, and you should not collect it in a deceptive way, for instance. So if you're actually doing scams to get information and to use it, it's not open source data because you have been deceptive in how you work. If you want to work again in public interest, because this is the part of, if you work for the public interest, you should be public from the beginning on what you do, what you use, and you should not be deceptive in that way. So again, it's really linked to how we envisioned the output, which was public facing, and that kind of helped us to go backwards and to understand what kind of safeguards we wanted to put in place. But we don't have that much of like shrinking the stuff to make it work and to agree on a common ground, because it has been quite, I would say, quite easy from the beginning to agree on what we wanted to do, and to say that also that's very humbly that this was the first try of trying to do something like that. So let's try to keep it simple at this stage, and let's build from there, instead of having something a bit ambitious that we could not follow up with. We decided really to, what do we agree on? And it was quite easy to go that way instead of going the other way. Beyond these guidelines, are you participating in the elaboration of formal legal frameworks for OSINT investigation at national or EU level? No. I'm not sure. I did not hear about formal legal frameworks for OSINT investigation at EU level for sure. At national level, I don't know all member states in the EU, so I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure GDPR and other kind of editorial guidelines are a good way to proceed with that. But I have not heard of any work on legal frameworks on that. If you have some knowledge, happy to know a bit more about that. Amaury, I don't know if you heard about anything like that.
Nope.
No. Creating an iteration space for those interested in mutual support on implementing the guidelines. Thank you. It's actually yes, one of the leads into OSINT and what could become OSINT. We do think that it might be a good idea to have that kind of good practice, a place where people could exchange, where people could have the capacity to also provide feedback. I've been trying to do that. I did not reach the objective, or I was a bit disappointed with that. Or I created this new framework. I think it works. Maybe we should try it. So again, it's a work in progress. One of the scenario that we are foreseeing for the future is really to have something that could be some kind of a good practice exchange between organization and practitioners, to foster a bit creativity and giving back. I think if you read the guidelines, we had some kind of a very interesting discussion about in OSINT you have open source, and to give this kind of open source spirit of giving back to the community, making sure like if you try to help to develop a tool, or if you're using a tool, please try to improve the tool also yourself and to share your experience. It's my personal view, but I think if we're doing OSINT on our side and not contributing to improving stuff, we are just on long term hurting the community and the open source spirit. If you see most of the EU Disinfo investigations, so we share a lot of the secret stuff that are not secret at all, because we found them online and we are sharing the tips and tricks that we've been using, because it can be useful for other people to use this. Where is the link to the guidelines? www.opsint.eu. That's it. Interest in developing guidelines for risk and impact assessments. I think the risk is a bit covered, Amaury, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but we need the template of document tools to apply those risk and impact assessments. That's part of the stuff that are needed from the community, because it's clearly a big part of the OSINT work, and yeah, we still need to work on that.
Yeah, I think if you look at the other guidelines, you might see that we have many ideas about what could be interesting documents, but we do not have templates for all of these, because sometimes it's included in some of the internal documents that we have, for instance, and we cannot share all the templates that we use. So if you are interested in actually developing templates and putting them at disposal of the community, because you do think that they might be useful, feel free to get in touch. We'll share contact. We'll share contact details in a bit. But yes, any kind of willingness to support this work, or to develop new templates, or to think about what could be interesting, I don't know, checklist. We were mentioning ChatGPT and other kind of stuff. If you already have, I don't know, some kind of assessment of how to check that that the conversational robot is helping or not helping, and what should you check for, we're happy to integrate this as a possible resource that you can use to improve your research and your methodology. So it's really an ongoing process here. We are at the end of the questions. So if we don't have any more, I'm just mentioning that we might close soon. Creating examples of best practices as inspiration. Yes, that's what Amaury has done. I know that some of the partners, Rachel is here in the crowd, that also CIR has been working on the different examples. So yes, this is what will probably happen in the next weeks, to try to think about having different examples of how it's been integrated, so people can try to get some inspiration and to apply this themselves. And again, if you do, please send feedback. If I don't have any other question, that the last one, will this webinar be available at your YouTube page? The answer is of course, yet. I don't see any more questions at this stage. If you're interested to join, to know more, to get in touch with us, feel free to let your email here. We'll be contacting you. It might take a bit, because we are doing this on top of all the many things that we have to do. So please bear with us. If you don't hear from us in the next 2 days, might be more in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But thank you for this. We're still around 100 participants, so fantastic attendance today to the webinar. I'm letting you typing. I would like to meanwhile to thank you, Amaury, for all of this work, and I would like again to thank all the different partners. I know some of them are in the call, so hello, and thank you again for all the fantastic work we've been doing all together. as we are closing this, I think I'm gonna leave because I do see that people are still typing into the guidelines. We will have, I encourage you to follow the OSINT website, and the communication will mostly go through the different partners that will communicate on this. So please feel free to check in on our social media at UD's InfoLab, Check First, CIR, etc. Because we logically, because we will mostly communicate through these in the next weeks and months. And we might have other sessions or possibility also for training on like diving much more deeper into the guidelines and providing a bit of deeper stuff. If we are good to go, I would like to thank you all for your attendance today. We'll be in touch very, very soon. Thank you, Amaury, and thank you to all for your kind words and participation today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.